From the individual standpoint, if an advisor is working with a client, it's important to understand what kind of a mix, if it's a residential, commercial, industrial, and having to understand the composition. Composition of the mix is very important. And the composition is literally what's under the hood of the mix. What the mix raises money for and invests accordingly in mortgages and the type of mortgages and the type of real estate it invests in. For example, a residential mix would be on a lower scale of risk just because the properties that it invests in, single family dwelling and everything else in it, tends to be a bit more liquid than a higher level grade commercial or industrial. Understanding what's under the hood of the mix is very important, as well as the composition ultimately determines the comfort level, not only for the investor, but also for the advisor who proposes this mix as an investment alternative. I'm smiling is because, see, offering memorandum is a boilerplated, templated piece of document. It's 85 pages. It's similar to a contract for pre-construction purposes between a buyer and a developer. Nobody reads through 85 pages. We just want to understand the gist, whether this makes sense and have a feel if this is the right type of a product. So personally, there's nothing you can do by regulatory requirements. You got to have all these pages because investors rely on OM exemption, right, before and in order to invest. What I would change, I would probably make it a bit more visual, because I know what I need to look for and I know what I recommend for people to look for when they look at an offering memorandum. Make it more visual. Show me what's under the hood, and I keep referring to this. Show me what it invests in. Give me graphs, give me a pie chart, and say, hey, this is the portion in condos, this is the portion in single family dwellings, this is the type of real estate we do. The more visual it is, the better it gives you an understanding of what to do and not to do when it gets to investing in a MIG. And by having this visual, that gives you a better perspective. Well, this is right for my client, or maybe this is a bit too risky. In terms of liquidity, and I think it's important to understand and kind of dissect the MIG sector into less risky, medium, and high. As I always say, residential, simple family dwellings are probably the most marketable piece of real estate. So looking at this and I'm saying, okay, well, this is less risky. But if the visual shows me something more complicated, construction, commercial, industrial, more specialty, then I can look at it right away without reading through a templated agreement and say, okay, well, this is a bit more aggressive. I'll do a little bit more due diligence on it before I start recommending this product. So the answer, long and short, just make sure there's more visual than boiler template text in it. Number one, understand, and I keep referring back to it, understand the type of a mortgage investment corporation that you're looking at and what it invests in. If it's a residential, commercial, industrial, let's outline this component. Number two, if it's a residential and or a commercial or industrial, try to understand the composition. Well, when you say you invest your money in mortgages, that's very broad. What do you specifically invest in? And then separate it and segregate it into separate forms. Single family dwelling, this type of a property, condo, land, construction, and then show me the allocation. Out of 100%, how much of this in this sector and in this sector and in this sector. So that's another thing that's important. And then also understand the liquidity. Liquidity, these are illiquid products. Now, there's a bit more liquidity in the residential mix just because there's more churning and because of the needed serves, quick in and out solutions. Commercial is longer, so always pay attention to liquidity, and liquidity itself can give you an indication on whether, if the economy changes and the market landscape changes, what is the possibility of gating and subsequent consequences of that. So again, allocation of the mix, its liquidity, and generally management. That's very important. Understand who the managers are, because managers are the ones who are providing the investment framework, which ultimately determines the level of risk. Their comfort level from the manager side and investors' comfort level are two different things. What the manager is comfortable in may not necessarily be what the investor is going to be comfortable in. So again, the type of a MIC, the composition of its investments, and how senior is the management and how experienced they are. So geography, from my perspective, is very important because, again, if a mortgage investment corporation is investing in the province's core, not necessarily way outside of the province, it means that where most of the people congregate, means more liquid, means in essence, a bit less risky versus going in the outskirts. Not to say that going into outskirts also provides you needed level of diversification. But geography is very important when we have very strict macroeconomic changes, like tariffs, for example. Why? Because if there's an automotive sector that gets affected, or aluminum or metal, for example, and these are practical examples now, then a portfolio manager should make an assessment right away which areas and which cities may be affected the most. If they're automotive heavy and people start losing their jobs, if people start losing their jobs, they will obviously the capacity to carry will diminish on the same set mortgage that MIC does. So understand the pivoting and what managers do in the geographic location when changes do take place.